Gurun Vaishnavanshan.
Hare Krishna, welcome. My name is Labanga Latika and I will continue with the Bhagavad-gita. I'm reading from Bhagavad-gita as it is, translated and commented by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I'm reading from this, still from the introduction. We were seeing how we were speaking about dharma. Dharma is sometimes translated as religion, but here we actually go a little deeper into that meaning, referring to that quality which is inseparable from the object. Water is wet and fire is hot. And if it isn't, it's not really water or fire. So we, the living entities, we are the servants. Krishna is God and He accepts our service. And if we do not serve Krishna, there will be other service. There will always be service. Yes. If we analyze this statement, Jivara Svarupa Hoy, our eternal situation, this is a statement by Lord Chaitanya, that eternal position is to be the servant of Krishna. We can see in this world, somebody is always rendering service to someone else. One friend serves another friend, the mother serves the son, the wife serves the husband serves the wife, and so on. If we go on searching in this spirit, it will be seen that there is no exception in the society of living beings to the activity of service. The politician presents his manifesto for the public to convince them of his capacity for service. The voter therefore give the politician their valuable votes. The voters therefore give the politician their valuable votes, thinking that he will render valuable service to society. The shopkeeper serves the customer and the artisan serves the capitalist. The capitalist serves the family and the family serves the state in the terms of eternal capacity of the eternal living being. In this way we can see that no living being is exempt from rendering service to other living beings, and therefore we can safely conclude that service is the constant companion of the living being, and that the rendering of service is the eternal religion of the living being. Yet, man professes to belong to a particular type of faith with reference to a particular time and circumstance, and thus claims to be a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or an adherent of any other sect. Such designations are non-Sanatan dharma. A Hindu may change his faith to become a Muslim, or a Muslim may change his faith to become a Hindu, or a Christian may change his faith, and so on. But in all circumstances, the change of religious faith does not affect the eternal occupation of rendering service unto others. The Hindu, Muslim, or Christians in all circumstances is servant of someone. Thus, to profess a particular type of faith is not to profess one's Sanatan Dharma. The rendering of service is Sanatan Dharma. Yes, we do see this. Although in today's society, this is not, it's not the angle we usually look at it. Nobody likes to think of themselves as a servant. We have done away with the relationship of servant and master. And nobody wants to accept another as master. And this is also natural, because in this world we are not really equipped to be somebody else's master, because this tends to go to our head. There tends to be exploitation, and many problems comes from somebody accepting the position of master. But accepting in humility in the heart the position that actually I meant to give to others. Of course, the Bhagavad-gita will direct that giving propensity back to Krishna, where it really belongs. But also when we look in the world, what gives us satisfaction is the sense of doing something good for others. And even if we avoid that, we will still be doing service in some other sense. Maybe we try to serve our senses, and so on. But yes, these are some points. Factually, we are related to the Supreme Lord in service. The Supreme Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and we, the living entities, are His servitors. We are created for His enjoyment, And if we participate in that eternal enjoyment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we become happy. We cannot become happy otherwise. It is not possible to be happy independently, just as no part of the body can be happy without cooperating with the stomach. It is not possible for the living entity to be happy without rendering transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. Yes, this is being stressed a little bit because we may need a little bit of persuasion to come around to that point, because it goes very much contrary to popular ideas. So what is the real point here is that service to Krishna is not a demeaning thing. It is a natural, dynamic relationship that is very loving and that is actually very satisfying. So sometimes we may bring out a principle and we think this principle is very important, but it is an external thing and it may not touch our heart. So when we can find a principle that also touches our heart for real, then it becomes possible to go deeper into that understanding. And this is such a point. Jiva Swarupa Hare Krishna Nityadas. In the Bhagavad-gita, worship of different demigods or rendering service to them is not approved. It is stated in the 7th chapter, 20th verse. Kamais tais tai hrita jnana prapadyantenya devataha tang niyamam asthaya prakritya niyatha svaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own nature. Here it is plainly said that those who are directed by lust worship the demigods and not the Supreme Lord Krishna. When we mention the name Krishna, we do not refer to any sectarian name. Krishna means the highest pleasure, and it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is the reservoir or storehouse of all pleasure. We are all hankering after pleasure. Anandamaya Bhyasat, Vedanta Sutra 1.1.12. The living entities, like the Lord, are full of consciousness and they are after happiness. The Lord is perpetually happy, and if the living entities associate with the Lord, cooperate with Him and take part in His association, then they also become happy. Yes. So the reason that Krishna is reaching out to us, we have so many religions and all the religious books, there is the same general principle giving. The Lord is giving in the scriptures an opportunity for the living entities to come back to His service. And it is not that Krishna needs more servants. The spiritual world is full and complete. Krishna in and of Himself is full and complete. But sometimes we notice that there is something lacking. We notice this a vacancy of the heart. And then we try to fill it with some form of happiness, with some form of enjoyment. Here when Krishna speaks about kamais, tais rita jnana, the lust of the heart, it's not necessarily a very, gross form of lust. It's more the point that we're always yearning for something, some form of enjoyment, some form of pleasure, some form of satisfaction in one way or another. And this is because naturally we are supposed to be happy. We are supposed to be in a blissful state that is natural to the soul. But when we come to this platform where we try to reach that happiness and satisfaction through our material senses, it doesn't actually work, because our real nature is not involved. It doesn't touch us as that spirit soul, as that living entity. And therefore Krishna is giving us this opportunity. Here, it's interesting, Prabhupada is quoting Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is very often studied in an impersonal, from an impersonal viewpoint, not at all looking for that relationship of service between Krishna and the living entities. But when we analyze the Vedanta Sutra in the Vaishnava commentary, these sutras are very short, very condensed, and we kind of need to unpack them, to unfold them, to realize what they are actually all about. And that there is a tradition in India where the Vedanta Sutra is studied in an impersonal way, but there is a Vaishnava commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and this Anandamaya Bhyasat, the living entity, full of consciousness and looking for happiness. That is not religion, that is just a fact, that is just a statement of our real nature. And then Bhagavad-gita and Krishna wants to equip us with the understanding and the knowledge how to find that happiness that is natural to the soul. The Lord descends to this mortal world to show his pastimes in Vrindavan, which are full of happiness. When Lord Sri Krishna was in Vrindavan, his activities with his cowherd boyfriends, with his damsel friends, with the other inhabitants of Vrindavan, and with the cows were all full of happiness. The total population of Vrindavan knew nothing but Krishna. But Lord Krishna even discouraged his father Nanda Maharaj from worshipping the demigod god Indra, because he wanted to establish the fact that people need not worship any demigod. They need only worship the Supreme Lord, because their ultimate goal is to return to his abode. The abode of Lord Krishna is described in Bhagavad-gita, 15th chapter, 6th verse. Na tad bahasayate suryo na shashanko na bhavakaha na gatva na nivartante tadhama paramang mama. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by sun or moon, not by fire or electricity. Those who reach it will never return to this material world. This verse gives a description of that eternal sky. Yes. So this is a great benefit of Bhagavad-gita, and Bhagavad-gita is the starting point. We can go on reading Srimad Bhagavatam also. That we don't only hear about God in a, in an academic or theoretical discourse. We are invited to get to know him. We can speak about God. We can speak about the principle that there is a controller, that there is an origin, that there is someone there who knows us and who has our best interest in mind, and who is inviting us to engage in his service. But before we accept such a position of aiming to get to know the Lord again in service, we would like to know who he is as a person. What is his abode like? The spiritual world is not simply a negation of the material world that is full of temporary situations that cause frustration and suffering, or temporary enjoyments that end and even causing more suffering. It is a place in and of itself. Krishna has a personality. And here Prabhupada is describing how he comes to this material world, and he brings the spiritual world with him. He brings the relationship with the devotees. He has his cowherd boyfriend. They go out and herd the calves in the forest, and they are having so much fun. And he has his parents. The cows are there, always looking at him with loving eyes. So all these different relationships, they exist, and Krishna is acting within them. And he's also making a point there, at one point, where the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they are following the Vedic traditions, and at one point they are starting the Indra Yagya. And Krishna puts down his foot, his little foot. He's just a little child at the time, and says, no, why should you worship this Indra? Let's worship the Govardhan instead, which, as that pastime is developing, it's revealed to be a form of Krishna himself. So the spiritual world exists. It has its own situation, and it's not dependent on anything here. Here we always need sun or moon, because basically we are in darkness, or we have electricity. We have lots of light. The spiritual world is not covered in that sort of darkness. It is always light. So this verse gives a description of the eternal sky. Of course, we have a material conception of the sky, and we think of it in relationship to the sun, moon, stars, and so on. But here the Lord states that the eternal sky, no need for sun, moon, or electricity of any kind, because the spiritual sky is already illuminated by the Brahmajyoti, the rays emanating from the Supreme Lord. We are trying with difficulty to reach other planets, but it is not difficult to understand the abode of the Supreme Lord. This abode is referred to as Goloka. In the Brahma Samhita 537, it is beautifully described. Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuta. The Lord resides eternally in his abode Goloka, yet he can be approached from this world. And to this end the Lord comes to manifest his real form, Satchitananda Vigraha. When he manifests this form, there is no need for our imagination what he looks like. To discourage such imaginative speculation, he descends and exhibits himself as he is, as Shyamasundara. Unfortunately, the less intelligent deride him because he comes as one of us and plays with us as a human being. But because of this, we should not consider the Lord one of us. It is by his omnipotency that he presents himself in his real form before us and displays his pastimes, which are replicas of those pastimes found in his abode. Yes, it is commonly spoken about God that it's impossible to understand him, it's impossible to prove God's existence, and how can we find him? And in a sense that is true, but for Krishna, for God himself, it is quite possible for him to manifest, to show himself before our eyes if he wants to. So the Bhagavad-gita is giving an introduction. The Bhagavatam will also show us more and more about Krishna. It gives us an introduction to that personality who has his eternal pastime, full of Satchitananda, eternality, knowledge and bliss. And in order for us to... Well, there are 3 stages in that realization. First, we need to establish our relationship to Krishna. We need to understand a little bit who he is, who we are, what is that relationship. And if he wouldn't give us that knowledge, we would have nothing to base it on. We would have to create some imagination or simply give up the idea altogether. Because if we know a little bit about, well, any situation, if you have a country, maybe you know that there is a prime minister, but you wouldn't know who he was unless you were reading it in the newspaper or watching it on TV or something. You can't just make up, okay, this country is run by someone, let me invent someone. No, the person is already there. Krishna is also already there. And in order for us to have the opportunity to start on our path back to him, he gives some description. He comes here and displays his personality, his pastimes, and so on. And then he encourages us that we can also establish our relationship to him. And that is one of the functions of this material world. And in this human life form especially, we are invited to take full advantage of that special function that Krishna gives us just for us. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Vandeham